Time now for our Friday roundtable discussion of some of the week's top stories. When we asked you what stories you wanted to hear more about, you told us. So tonight we're going to focus on Europe's continuing economic challenges, including the debt crisis in Greece that has many Europeans worried well beyond Greece's borders. We're also going to talk about Iran and what that regime is really trying to achieve by moving to a higher level of uranium enrichment, a move that prompted warnings of strong new sanctions from the West. Joining us once again are Carla Robbins, Deputy Editorial Page Editor of The New York Times, and Garrick Utley, former NBC News foreign correspondent and anchor, and now President of the Levin Institute of the State University of New York. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. So we had this news this week that Iran is going to be enriching its uranium stockpile to a higher level. Where do you see this situation headed?
Well, they're trying to do a variety of things here. One is at a period of a huge amount of political turmoil. The government is trying to whip up nationalist sentiment by saying, look, we can do this incredible thing the West doesn't want us to do. But as you go to a higher level of enrichment, it gets easier and easier to go to an even higher level of enrichment, and then you start flirting with the possibility of being able to make a fuel for a nuclear bomb, and that is pretty scary.
There are three issues here. One is the technical advances they can make by enriching the nuclear product even more. Secondly is the impact on the international community. It was really one in the eye, not only for the United States, the international community, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which had actually an agreement with Iran that they would not do this without inspectors present, and they went ahead and did it. And the third one issue, of course, is the domestic one. This is a regime under great pressure, internally as well as external sanctions. And either pull back or you just power right ahead and become more bombastic, and that's what they did. How this plays out, we're going to see.
Right. Well, I mean, it has been reported that Iran took this move to redirect pressure away from domestic problems toward the nuclear issue. I mean, is sort of redirecting public opinion actually working in Iran, given that Iran has so many, is beset with so many problems? Is it working? Do the public buy it?
I think less so than they used to. I think people were very energized and very angered by what everyone saw as a fraudulent election last June. And I think if you look at yesterday's demonstration on the anniversary of the revolution, the interesting thing is, yes, a lot of loyal supporters of the government turned out, but it took a huge amount of repression to keep the opposition away. So we don't know. We don't know, how close they are to the edge there. And once again, waving the nuclear flag is an attempt to divert attention away. But I think fewer and fewer Iranians are falling for it.
And also the pressure now is constant. The government knows that this opposition is not going to go away, even if it's not out in the tens or hundreds of thousands in the street on any given day. And I think they are stuck, we are stuck, until something happens. And as Carla says, we don't know where this is in the foreseeable future or 10 years from now.
Right. And in terms of the nuclear issue, is there anything more than that President Obama and our partners can do to try to move negotiations forward, or have we really come to the end of the road there?
Well, it's not. It's not a one-two choice here. I mean, the whole point is that they made an offer. They were willing to accept compromises. The West was. The Iranians looked like they wanted to make a compromise, and they backed away from it. So now the next challenge is to put real sanctions in that bite. And they're talking about sensible sanctions, putting sanctions on the Revolutionary Guard, the people who control the nuclear program as well as a good part of the economy, not popular with the Iranian people. The challenge are twofold. One is to come up with a set of sanctions that don't punish the Iranians and give the government more of an excuse to say, look, it's the West against all of us, not just the government. And the other one is to get the Chinese and the Russians to go along, because you're not going to get Security Council resolutions unless they do it, and they have a long history of watering it down. Now, the Americans say the Russians are running out of patience. The Chinese do so much oil trade with the Iranians, they don't want to do anything. They're enablers. Now, one of the things the Obama administration is doing, which is quite interesting, is they're talking to the Saudis and other Gulfies, and they're saying to them, will you make up the difference if the Iranians cut off oil deliveries? And so we'll see how that goes. They're trying, the administration is trying hard.
Okay, well, let's leave Iran for a second and move on to, we could talk about it for a long time, but let's turn to Greece's debt problems. Talk a little bit about how you think that those problems, not just in Greece, but also Portugal, Spain also have enormous economic problems. How is that affecting the rest of the European economy?
Well, first of all, this is the inevitable other shoe, or the third or fourth shoe to drop in this whole financial crisis. What started with subprime mortgages, there's going to be no contagion, don't worry about it. Well, there's continuous contagion. Here we are now in Europe. Secondly, you do have the Portugal, Spain's, Greece's with these incredible debt holes they have worked themselves into by overspending. spending. And now how do you bail them out? Because they have these debts coming due in the next few months. I don't think there's any threat to the European Union. The question is about the euro itself, and the key to that question is going to be Germany. Is the German middle class, which still regrets and longs for the old Deutschmark and accepted the euro, going to accept bailing out the Portugals and Greeces of this world? I don't think Angela Merkel is really going to be able to do that. And we saw in Brussels just this week that the French and the Germans, the others got together and said, yes, we're going to take action. What action are you going to take? Well, we'll see.
Right. Well, what is the U.S. view on this? Is this something that could eventually end up on U.S. shores as well, these problems in Europe?
Well, obviously you want a Europe that's recovering, and you've got a terrible problem here, which is you don't want these governments to cut back on stimulus, and at the same time you're talking about how the Greeks have got to cut their deficit and do all these things to become good economic players. The problem from the beginning has always been with the euro is that you have a single currency, but you don't have a single government to make decisions. And there are times when different governments want to print more money to make up differences. There's been a remarkable lack of discipline in Greece and some of these other governments. And at the time when the economies were going, nobody was paying attention. So now they've got this problem. I don't believe, you're right, Angela Merkel doesn't want to do anything. The German middle class doesn't want to do anything. With a single currency, I don't think they have any choice, because they're going to bring everybody down if they don't do it.
But you do Portugal, then you do Spain, manageable small economies. I mean, Greece and Portugal. What about Spain? And then what about Italy? Now you're getting into major countries, and that's where everybody sees this going, and that's the problem. You go back 10 years ago when it was formed, some people said this was putting the cart before the horse, a common currency before there's a common government, a common European budget. And the rule that they agreed to was that deficits would be no more than 3% per year of gross domestic product. Well, it's gone way beyond that now, as it has in this country. So in this case, I think we all understand what the problem is. And it's going to come down not just on France, not even on France, but on Germany and what they're going to do. And that's Chancellor Merkel's call.
Well, and if they decide they don't want to bail everybody out, the Germans are going to pay the price too. They're an export-led economy. They don't have any choice.
Yeah. All right. Gary Catley, Carla Robbins, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.